The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the buzz of a dozen species, their diverse voices filling the grand hall. It was a momentous occasion, one that only happened once every 1,000 years, a gathering to discuss the most dangerous substances in the universe. The Council, a collective of the most powerful and advanced beings across the galaxy, convened to share knowledge and discuss the perils that lurked in the depths of space. The first speaker was an ancient member of the Orcs species, their form a swirling mass of gaseous tendrils that shimmered with vibrant light. Their leader, Lorthan, raised their tendrils to signal the beginning of the session. We gather here today to discuss the deadliest forces in our known universe. Lorthan's voice echoed, rich with authority and age. Our research has led us to one undeniable conclusion. Water is a substance that must be avoided at all costs. A murmur of agreement rippled through the council members. The Zutori, a reptilian species known for their cold-blooded efficiency, nodded solemnly. The Trevarians, gelatinous beings who thrived in vacuum, exchanged a series of electronic beeps, their form pulsing rhythmically with the conversation. The Zuthari, a technologically advanced species known for their crystalline structures and near immortality, sent their delegate, Dr. Psylocke, to present the evidence. He stepped forward, his sharp, angular features glowing with an unsettling pale blue light. His voice was cold, but there was a sense of urgency in his tone. Water, Dr. Psylocke began, is a substance that defies all logic. It is corrosive, it erodes, and it suffocates. It is the silent killer that has brought entire civilizations to ruin. Our records show that entire star systems have fallen due to the infiltration of water-based environments. It does not matter how advanced a species is, water can break even the strongest. A series of quiet nods echoed throughout the chamber as each species processed his words. The Zutori, whose home world was plagued by sudden, deadly floods, exchanged glances, the memory of their people's near extinction fresh in their minds. The Trevarians emitted a low-frequency hum, perhaps remembering the days when they tried to colonize a planet with large bodies of water, only to suffer an irreversible loss of their species population. As Dr. Psylocke spoke, his words became more grave, more pointed. He outlined the many ways that water, though it seemed like an innocuous, even essential element, had destroyed civilizations, wiped out species, and caused untold suffering across the galaxy. We must understand this truth, Dr. Psylocke declared, his voice tinged with a hint of pride in his scientific work. No species can thrive in an environment dominated by water. It is, without a doubt, the most dangerous substance in the universe. A heavy silence fell over the council. Each species seemed to grapple with the weight of his statement, their thoughts turning inward to their own histories. Many of them had faced the destructive force of water firsthand, with flood-ravaged cities or failed colonies whose inhabitants had not been prepared for the watery death trap lurking in their midst. Then, as the silence stretched on, the humans in the room stood. It was a small group, only a few representatives, but the room's focus shifted immediately. These were the creatures who, despite being the newest entrants into the galactic community, had caught the attention of many species. One of the human representatives, a middle-aged woman with short-cropped hair and an unshakable gaze, spoke calmly. "We are humans," she began, "and we thrive in the presence of water." There was a stunned silence. The chamber, which had been filled with confident, authoritative voices just moments before, was now silent as the other species turned to study the humans, eyes filled with disbelief. "How can this be?" one of the Trevarians questioned, sending a series of electric pulses in disbelief. "Water is death." The human woman smiled slightly, almost as if she had expected this response. She spoke with quiet confidence, her voice steady. "We've evolved alongside water, adapted to it. Water is not our enemy. It is the foundation of life. We breathe it, drink it, and even use it to power our civilizations." The council members stared at her, unsure of what to make of her claim. How could this fragile, fleshy species not only survive water, but embrace it? Dr. Xylock, his curiosity piqued beyond measure, leaned forward, his mind racing. "Explain," he demanded. "How can a substance so lethal be the key to your survival?" The human representative's gaze met his, unwavering. "We don't just survive water. We've learned to conquer it. And in doing so, we've learned to conquer the universe." Dr. Xylock couldn't shake the words of the human representative from his mind. He had spent years studying the deadly effects of water, cataloging the way it had wiped out species, brought down empires, and altered entire ecosystems. And yet, here was a species that not only survived in the presence of water but thrived. The idea was inconceivable, a challenge to everything he knew. He needed to understand more. He needed to see this for himself. Days later, Dr. Xylock arrived on Earth. His vessel descended through the atmosphere, cutting through the dense clouds that cloaked the planet's surface. The air smelled thick with moisture, a constant reminder of the substance he had been taught to fear. He watched from the window of his ship as vast bodies of water, oceans, rivers, lakes, sprawled beneath him. This was the heart of the enigma, the birthplace of humanity. How could a species survive in a world so dominated by a substance that was lethal to every other known species? He landed on the shores of a vast ocean, the endless horizon stretching out before him. Humans, it seemed, had learned to live alongside water, integrating it into every part of their civilization. The first thing Dr. Xylock noticed was how the humans interacted with the water without hesitation. They weren't afraid. There were no signs of caution, no armor or shields designed to protect them from the danger that water posed to other life forms. It was as if water itself was just another part of their environment, not a force to be feared. He spent the next few weeks conducting observations, trying to make sense of what he saw. Everywhere he looked, humans were surrounded by water. They drank it freely, swam in it, used it in their machines. It was essential to their way of life. He watched as they bathed in it, cooked with it, and even sought it out in their most sacred rituals. But most perplexing of all, he observed how humans survived, even flourished, in water-based environments that would have obliterated the majority of the galaxy's species. One afternoon, Dr. Xylock stood on the edge of a bustling coastal city, watching as humans navigated the waterways in boats, ferries, and underwater vehicles. Some worked beneath the surface, their specialized suits allowing them to move freely in the depths. They seemed completely at ease, moving with purpose and confidence. It was a stark contrast to the species Dr. Xylock had studied, who, upon contact with water, would either suffocate, burn, or become paralyzed by the element's very presence. How could humans exist in a world where water was so ubiquitous, so dangerous? Determined to dig deeper, Dr. Xylock decided to learn about human biology. He gathered a team of medical experts to study how humans could survive water in ways that were impossible for other species. What he discovered was nothing short of extraordinary. Humans, unlike any other species he had encountered, had evolved to harness water's most basic properties. Their bodies could absorb it, process it, and use it to sustain their life. Their cells, unlike those of other species, were built to thrive in a water-based environment, adapting to changes in temperature, pressure, and oxygen levels with ease. Their skin, their organs, their blood, all of it seemed to function in harmony with the very element that was so destructive to other life forms. But what fascinated Dr. Xylock most wasn't just the biology. It was the human approach to water itself. He had learned that, while water could break others, it did not break humans. They approached the danger with ingenuity and willpower. They had invented ways to manipulate water, to filter it, purify it, and even control it. In the face of its destructive potential, humans had learned to tame it, bend it to their will. Dr. Xylock spent long hours poring over data, running simulations, and testing human resilience in increasingly extreme water conditions. He was both astonished and humbled by what he found. Humans had not just adapted to water, they had become masters of it, using it to power their civilizations, grow their food, and even alter the course of their history. In the quiet of his study, Dr. Psylocke sat, staring at the information in front of him. He could no longer deny it. Humans had unlocked a secret that no other species had managed to grasp. They had not just survived the deadliest substance in the universe, they had learned to live with it, and in doing so, they had reshaped the very fabric of their existence. But even with all this knowledge, one question remained. How? How had humans achieved this mastery over water when every other species had failed? It was this question that drove Dr. Psylocke forward, deeper into his obsession with understanding humanity. As Dr. Psylocke continued his studies, he began to observe human behavior more closely, searching for any patterns or secrets that might explain their uncanny relationship with water. He watched them in the oceans, in rivers, and even in the smallest puddles. No matter where they encountered it, humans interacted with water in ways that no other species could. The longer he studied them, the more puzzled he became. They didn't just survive in a water-dominated world. They thrived in it, and not just through their physiology. There was something deeper at play. Dr. Psylocke decided to conduct a series of experiments to understand the true extent of humanity's resilience. He sought out a group of volunteers who were willing to endure extreme conditions, pushing the limits of human endurance. Emma, the same scientist who had spoken with such quiet confidence in the Galactic Council chamber, agreed to participate. She was a curious and unflinching subject, eager to help Dr. Psylocke uncover the mystery behind her species' unusual relationship with water. The first test was simple: dehydration. Dr. Psylocke exposed Emma to an environment where water was scarce, knowing that no species could last long without it. He wanted to see how long a human could endure without access to the vital element. Emma was given only small amounts of water over the course of several days, but instead of succumbing to weakness and exhaustion like every other species would have, she remained remarkably resilient. Her body, despite the lack of water, continued to function with a quiet efficiency that astonished Dr. Psylocke. Her pulse remained steady, her skin didn't wither as others would have, and her mental clarity remained sharp. She spoke of the mental focus required to endure, explaining how humans had developed ways to cope with the sensation of thirst, not just physically, but mentally as well. Next, Dr. Psylocke exposed Emma to cold temperatures, submerging her in freezing water for several hours. Other species would have been incapacitated by the extreme cold, their bodies freezing from the inside out, but Emma fought through it. She maintained her body temperature, using her mind to control her reactions. When she emerged from the icy depths, she was shivering but otherwise unharmed. Dr. Psylocke was in awe. He had expected at least some form of physical breakdown, but instead, Emma seemed to adapt to the water, even when it was working against her. The third test was even more extreme. Dr. Psylocke submerged Emma in a chamber that simulated the pressure of being miles beneath the ocean's surface. The chamber was filled with water, and the pressure was so immense that no other species would have been able to survive. For most, it would be a death sentence. But not Emma. She remained calm, breathing slowly as the pressure bore down on her. The weight of the water, the crushing depth, none of it seemed to affect her. When she was brought back to the surface hours later, she showed no signs of injury. Dr. Psylocke was speechless. It was in this moment that the truth began to dawn on him. Humans didn't just endure water. They adapted to it, on a level that no other species could comprehend. Their bodies, their minds, their very being had learned to coexist with the substance that was the universe's greatest threat to life. It wasn't simply that they could survive in water. It was that they embraced it. They didn't fight it like every other species had done. They didn't avoid it. They learned from it. Emma's ability to endure and adapt to such harsh conditions wasn't unique. Dr. Psylocke realized that every human, in some form, had developed this resilience. Whether through their biology, their culture, or their mindset, humans had found a way to not only coexist with water, but to use it as a driving force behind their survival and advancement. The very substance that would break any other species had become their greatest tool, their greatest strength. Dr. Psylocke sat in stunned silence. He had come to study the dangers of water, to learn how it destroyed civilizations, but what he had discovered was far more profound. Humans were not just survivors of water. They were masters of it. As Dr. Psylocke delved deeper into his observations, it became clear that water was not simply a substance the humans had adapted to. It was something more. It wasn't just their physical resilience that set them apart, but their mindset. Humans approached challenges differently from every other species in the galaxy. While other species instinctively avoided danger, adapting only when absolutely necessary, humans seemed to thrive on it. They embraced challenges. They sought them out. And water, it seemed, was the ultimate challenge. Dr. Psylocke spent days observing humans in various environments. He watched them traverse vast oceans in fragile vessels, navigating waves that would have sent other species to their doom. He saw them dive into deep, dark waters with no fear, using nothing more than their own skills and tools to explore the unknown. He noted their willingness to test the limits of what water could do, pushing boundaries that no one else would dare. It wasn't just about survival, it was about conquering the very forces that others feared. In one particularly striking moment, Dr. Psylocke watched a group of humans stranded in a flooded city. Rising floodwaters had trapped them in a crumbling building, their escape route blocked by the surging waters. For most species, panic would have set in. Instincts would take over, and survival would be the only priority. But not for these humans. Instead of fleeing in fear, they moved with calm precision. They worked together, using their knowledge of water's behavior to navigate through the rising tide. Some built rudimentary boats from debris, while others used ropes and pulleys to move through the water efficiently. It was as if they had seen such a scenario before, not in terms of the specific disaster, but in the way they handled the unexpected. They did not fear the water. They used it to their advantage, their adaptability shining through in the way they responded to danger. What drives them? Dr. Psylocke asked himself as he watched them. What makes them so different? He had witnessed many species adapt to their environments, but none like this. The Zithari, for example, had a remarkable ability to survive in extreme heat and pressure. Their crystalline forms could withstand the harshest of conditions, but they never sought out challenges the way humans did. They lived to preserve their lives, their species. Their survival instinct was rooted in caution, in avoiding the forces that could destroy them. Humans, however, seemed to take the opposite approach. They chose to face the dangers that others would have avoided. They saw adversity as an opportunity, not a threat. Dr. Psylocke began to realize that water wasn't just a survival mechanism for humanity. It was a teacher. Water had shaped their evolution, yes, but it had also shaped their minds. It had taught them how to think, how to plan, and how to adapt. Other species learned to survive through instinct. Humans learned through willpower. In the quiet hours of the night, Dr. Psylocke sat in his study, reflecting on everything he had observed. It was not just their bodies that made humans unique. It was their unwavering will to survive, to adapt, to learn from every challenge that came their way. That was the true key to their success. Water, the universe's deadliest substance, was not something they feared. It was something they respected. And in that respect, they had found the strength to thrive. Perhaps it is not the substance that is dangerous, Dr. Psylocke thought. Perhaps it is the mindset that matters most. In that moment, Dr. Psylocke realized that it wasn't just humans' relationship with water that made them so formidable. It was their ability to confront any challenge with unwavering resolve, to adapt, and to always find a way to push forward, no matter the odds. It was a lesson that no other species in the galaxy had yet learned. Dr. Psylocke's fascination with humanity deepened as he watched them face increasingly difficult challenges. He had begun to understand that it wasn't just their physical prowess or their intellectual ability that made them so resilient. It was their will, their ability to confront and adapt to the most extreme conditions that set them apart. But despite his growing respect for the humans, there was still something about their survival that eluded him. How did they do it? How could a species so seemingly fragile be so incredibly tough when it came to the universe's most dangerous substance? Driven by his desire for answers, Dr. Psylocke decided to design an experiment that would push human resilience to its absolute limits. He would expose a human volunteer to an environment that no other species could survive, one that would test the very essence of their ability to endure. It was a risk, but he was no longer interested in theory alone. He needed concrete proof. The test would be set on a remote planet with conditions unlike any other. The planet was covered in vast oceans, but beneath the surface lay an extreme hostile environment, a combination of deep sea pressure, freezing temperatures, and near-zero oxygen. The surface conditions were almost entirely inhospitable, but beneath the water, in the deepest regions, there was an even greater challenge. For any other species, it would be a death sentence. For humans, it could be their greatest test. Emma, the same volunteer who had previously endured the tests, was chosen once again. Despite the grave nature of the experiment, she agreed without hesitation. She had been through a great deal in the previous trials, but something about this one felt different. She knew it would push her to the edge. But in her eyes, there was no fear, only resolve. The chamber where the test would take place was designed to simulate the depths of the ocean. The pressure was crushing, the temperature bitterly cold, and the air almost entirely devoid of oxygen. When Emma entered the chamber, Dr. Psylocke could see her steady breath, hear her calm movements as she prepared for what was to come. She was ready. He had never seen such composure. The chamber doors sealed, and the environment began to change. Water flooded in, rising slowly at first, and then rapidly enveloping the chamber. Emma didn't flinch. As the pressure built up, her body would have begun to feel the strain, her bones aching, her organs compressed. The temperature dropped further, and soon, the water was freezing. Yet Emma remained still, breathing evenly. Minutes turned to hours, and Dr. Psylocke observed in awe. Other species would have been crushed by the pressure or incapacitated by the freezing temperatures. Some might have passed out, others would have succumbed to the lack of oxygen. But not Emma. She moved with purpose, shifting her focus to keep her mind sharp, her body calm. In the cold, she focused on her breath. In the pressure, she focused on her strength. It was the longest test Dr. Psylocke had ever conducted, pushing both the physical and psychological limits of human endurance. He watched as Emma's body adapted, adjusting to the extreme conditions. It was as if she had entered a meditative state, her mind in perfect harmony with the environment around her. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the chamber doors opened. Emma was slowly brought to the surface. She was pale, her body shivering from the cold, but there was no sign of the collapse that Dr. Psylocke had expected. Her vitals were stable, her pulse steady. Remarkable, Dr. Psylocke muttered, almost to himself. No other species could endure such conditions and remain conscious, let alone functional. Emma looked at him, her expression tired but calm. "It wasn't easy," she said simply, "but I knew what I had to do. You can't fight the water. You have to work with it." Dr. Psylocke's mind raced as he processed what he had just witnessed. It wasn't simply that humans could endure harsh conditions. They could adapt to them. Emma hadn't just survived the extreme environment. She had remained composed, mentally and physically. She had used every bit of her knowledge, her training, and her mental strength to control her body in ways that no other species could. In that moment, Dr. Psylocke realized that the key to human survival wasn't just their biology. It was their mindset. While other species might fear the dangers of water, humanity's greatest strength was their ability to accept it, to face it head-on, and to adapt in ways no one else could. They had learned not to fight the inevitable, but to understand it, to work alongside it. "Water is not their enemy," Dr. Psylocke whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Water is their ally." As Dr. Psylocke continued to reflect on the extraordinary capabilities of humans, he felt a growing sense of admiration for the species. The experiment with Emma had been the final piece in the puzzle. His earlier assumptions, based solely on the destructive potential of water, had been shattered. What he had learned over the past months was that humans didn't simply survive water. They used it. It was as if they understood its power and had learned to turn it into a tool, something no other species in the galaxy had ever done. The other species of the Galactic Council had viewed water as an existential threat, a force that would bring ruin to even the most powerful civilizations. Yet here was humanity, a species that, despite its fragility compared to many others, had managed to harness the very substance that had defeated countless others. Dr. Psylocke could no longer dismiss them as just a curious anomaly in the galactic ecosystem. They were a force to be reckoned with. One evening, while seated in the quiet of his study aboard his ship, Dr. Psylocke reviewed his notes. He had witnessed things that had defied all logic and expectation. But there was one question still gnawing at him. How? How had humans come to master water in ways that no other species had? What was the key that allowed them to not only survive but thrive where others failed? He decided to reach out to Emma again, hoping she could provide the final insight he so desperately sought. He arranged a communication, and within moments, her face appeared on the screen in front of him. She looked calm as always, as though the trials she had undergone had not fazed her in the least. "You've seen it all now," she said, her tone light, but there was a hint of pride in her eyes. "So, what's your conclusion?" Dr. Psylocke leaned forward, searching for the right words. "You are unlike any species I have encountered. Your ability to endure water's harshest conditions, to thrive where others would perish, it is beyond anything I expected. But I still do not understand why. What is it that gives you this strength?" Emma took a moment before replying. "It's not just about the body, Dr. Psylocke. It's about our mindset. We've learned to face hardship head-on, to accept that there will be challenges. The trick is not in avoiding them, but in understanding them. Water is a challenge for us, but it is also a part of who we are. It teaches us to adapt, to find solutions, and to push ourselves beyond what we thought was possible." Dr. Psylocke listened intently, trying to grasp the depth of her words. "But surely you must fear it. Fear the danger it presents." Emma shook her head. "Fear doesn't help. We have our moments, sure. Everyone does. But fear isn't what drives us. It's the willingness to face something head-on, to learn from it, and to become better because of it. Water is dangerous, yes, but it also gives us a chance to grow." The simplicity of her words struck Dr. Psylocke with the force of a revelation. He had focused too much on the physical aspects, the way humans' bodies could endure water's punishing conditions, but Emma's words revealed the true secret. It wasn't just about the body, it was about the mind. Humans had learned to approach water, and by extension, all challenges, with a resilience that transcended mere survival. They embraced the difficulty, used it as a stepping stone to evolve. He suddenly understood. Water was not just an obstacle. For humanity, it was a teacher. It had shaped their history, their cultures, their very way of thinking. It wasn't a substance to fear or avoid. It was something to conquer, to learn from, and to use in ways no one else had ever imagined. This was their true strength. Their ability to face the unknown, to adapt to the unforgiving elements, and to turn every challenge into an opportunity. "I see it now," Dr. Psylocke said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "It's not just the water that makes you strong. It's the way you face it, the way you adapt, the way you choose to learn from it." Emma smiled. "Exactly. Water is part of our world. Just like every challenge we face, we don't try to avoid it. We learn to live with it, and in doing so we grow." Dr. Psylocke sat back in his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this revelation. In all his years of studying the universe, he had never encountered a species quite like humanity. They were not just survivors. They were conquerors of the impossible, turning adversity into opportunity, mastering the very forces that had destroyed so many others. The universe had just witnessed the rise of a species that would change everything. Dr. Xylok's journey had reached its peak, but the story was far from over. He had discovered the extraordinary resilience of humanity, but the galaxy beyond Earth remained unaware of what he had found. Other species, far removed from the human homeworld, still saw water as an enemy, something to be conquered, avoided, or fled from. If Dr. Xylok was to share his findings with the Galactic Council, he needed to convince them that humanity was more than just another primitive species. He needed to make them understand that Earth, with its oceans, rivers, and lakes, had produced a species capable of not only surviving but thriving in conditions that could destroy others. Dr. Xylok prepared for the most important presentation of his life. He gathered his data, everything from the depths of the oceans to the humans' physical and psychological abilities. He compiled video footage of their endurance tests, their ability to adapt, and the groundbreaking way they approached the world. If he was to prove humanity's worth to the Council, he needed to show them what he had learned. That humanity was not just a species that had survived, but one that had mastered the most dangerous force in the universe. The day of the presentation arrived. Dr. Xylok stood before the Galactic Council, his hand steady as he began his speech. The room was filled with representatives from countless species, beings of all shapes, sizes, and intelligence levels. They were curious, skeptical, and for the most part, indifferent. What had humans done to make them any different from the hundreds of species already represented? Esteemed members of the Council, Dr. Xylok began, his voice echoing through the grand chamber. Today, I bring you a discovery that will change the way we view life in the galaxy. I have studied many species in my travels, but none like humanity. Their relationship with the most dangerous substance in the universe, water, defies everything we know. It is a force of destruction to us all. Yet for humans, it is not an enemy. It is a teacher. A murmur rippled through the room, and several members exchanged puzzled glances. Dr. Xylok continued, unfazed. I have observed them, tested them, and I now understand their strength. Water, which has destroyed civilizations, shattered species, and caused untold devastation, is not something humans fear. They learn from it. They adapt to it, and they master it. He gestured toward the large screens behind him, which displayed video clips of Emma's endurance tests, the freezing temperatures, the deep sea pressures, the near-total lack of oxygen. The footage showed Emma's calm, focused demeanor, her ability to withstand conditions that would have brought any other species to their knees. Then the screen shifted to images of humanity using water in their daily lives, building vast cities, constructing machines, and even sending vessels into space, all powered by water. To Dr. Xylok's surprise, the room grew silent. He could feel the weight of their attention. The council members were no longer looking at him with skepticism. They were watching the humans. They were watching Emma. They were watching humanity conquer the impossible. We see humans not just as survivors, Dr. Xylok said, his voice gaining strength. They are innovators, creators. They do not fight water. They adapt to it, harness its power, and turn it into a resource. This species has unlocked the key to mastering the forces that govern life itself, and they do it with an attitude that no other species has. He paused, letting his words sink in. Through their resilience, their innovation, and their ability to adapt, humanity has shown us all a lesson we have failed to learn. It is not enough to survive. It is not enough to merely endure. We must face our greatest challenges head-on, learn from them, and transform them into opportunities. The silence in the room was palpable. Dr. Xylok's words seemed to resonate with the council members. The Zephyri, who had always prized their ability to withstand extreme heat, were exchanging thoughtful glances. The Varanth, known for their complex understanding of the stars, seemed to be deep in contemplation. Even the Lilith, the mysterious race that rarely spoke at all, appeared to be reflecting on his message. Finally, one of the council members, a large insectoid creature from the planet Kar, stood up. Its voice, rich with curiosity, filled the room. "Dr. Xylock, you are suggesting that we have misunderstood the essence of humanity, that their strength lies not only in their biology, but in their approach to challenges." Dr. Xylock nodded, his eyes never leaving the screen where humanity's accomplishments played out. "Precisely. They do not avoid challenges. They seek them out, and in doing so, they have unlocked a potential that no other species has. We have underestimated them for far too long." The room was still. For the first time, the Galactic Council was beginning to grasp the truth. Humanity was not just a species on the brink of greatness. They were a species that had already begun to change the rules of survival, and the universe would have to take notice. The Galactic Council chamber remained still as the weight of Dr. Xylock's words sank in. For centuries, the Council had prided itself on its wisdom, its ability to discern the true potential of species across the galaxy. But now, before them, was a species that had defied their expectations in the most extraordinary way. Humanity was no longer just a curiosity, no longer just a young, fragile species scrambling to survive. They had become a symbol of potential, of resilience, of innovation. Dr. Xylock's heart raced as he saw the various council members slowly stir. Some were speaking in hushed tones, while others seemed lost in deep thought, clearly reconsidering their previous judgments of humanity. The insectoid Gihar representative spoke again, this time with more urgency. "You speak of resilience, of adaptation, but is humanity ready for the galactic stage?" it asked, its multifaceted eyes glinting with curiosity. "They have conquered water. What of the greater challenges of space? What of the dark, unpredictable forces that threaten every civilization?" Dr. Xylock's eyes narrowed slightly as he prepared his response. Humanity has already begun their journey beyond their home planet. Their ingenuity with water is just one example of their ability to adapt. They have overcome the challenges of space travel, working together to build machines that can explore the cosmos. I have seen their potential, and it's not just in their technology. It's in their very mindset. He paused, letting his words settle. The chamber was silent once more. The essence of humanity lies in their ability to learn from adversity. While other species avoid danger, humanity rushes toward it, knowing that there is growth to be found in every struggle. They are not merely surviving in the face of overwhelming forces. They are thriving, adapting to the unknown, and overcoming what would have crushed others. The Varanth, a species known for their philosophical wisdom, were the next to speak. But is this adaptability always enough? What of the dangers beyond their planet, beyond water? How will they survive the true challenges of space, the unknown forces, the threats that exist beyond our comprehension? Dr. Xylock's mind raced as he thought of the most recent human advancements. Their ingenuity had already reached remarkable heights, and their curiosity knew no bounds. They may not yet understand all the threats of the universe, he said, but their greatest strength is their ability to learn, to constantly evolve. They do not fear the unknown. They confront it. The very force that could have destroyed them, water, has shaped them into a species that refuses to back down from any challenge. Another voice interrupted, this time from the Zithari, the species known for their ability to endure extreme heat. You claim they have learned from their challenges, but what if this drive to face danger leads them down a path of destruction? Not all challenges are ones that can be conquered. Some may simply overwhelm them. Dr. Xylock took a deep breath. It is true that no species can face every challenge and emerge unscathed, but humanity has already proven that they can adapt even when faced with near impossible odds. When water threatened their survival, they did not collapse. They found a way forward. If they can adapt to that, what's to say they can't do the same with other cosmic challenges? The room seemed to hum with a collective realization. Humanity's drive, their adaptability, and their ability to thrive under duress were qualities that the Council had not fully understood before. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive. It was how quickly they could rise, given the opportunity. The Tar representative was the first to speak after a long silence. Perhaps it is time we reconsider our assumptions about humanity. If they can truly overcome the most formidable challenges, they may be the key to unlocking new possibilities for the entire galaxy. A wave of agreement rippled through the council, as species that had once seen humans as insignificant began to regard them with newfound respect. For the first time, they realized that humanity's most dangerous substance, water, was not something that had weakened them. It had strengthened them, molded them into a species unlike any other. Dr. Xylock stepped back, his heart swelling with pride. He had come to this council as a scientist seeking answers, but now he had presented humanity's greatest gift to the universe. Not just their survival, but their ability to conquer the very forces that threatened them. In doing so, they had earned a place among the stars. This was just the beginning. The Council, once divided in their views of humanity, now stood united in awe of the species that had learned to thrive in a universe that would have crushed most others. A new era was beginning, one in which humanity's determination, innovation, and resilience would light the way forward for all. As the session came to a close, Dr. Xylock stepped down from the podium. The universe was now aware of humanity's potential, and for the first time, the galaxy was truly in their hands.